Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So we have already talked yesterday about the top 5 decks that will not be winning the Pokemon World Championships, and so today I am here to discuss, in my opinion, as always, the top 5 decks that I think have a very real possibility to become the London 2022 Pokemon TCG World Champion. Let's take a look. If you're planning on buying any cards from TCG Player, make sure you use our affiliate link right here in the description of our video to help support the channel. It's the best way to do it and it's free. Looking for PTGO codes? Potown Store has all the latest sets and promos, instantly delivered to your email. You can use Tablemon code when checking out for 5% off. Card Market is Europe's largest online marketplace for Pokemon cards. Whether you're looking for sealed product or singles, vintage or the latest sets, just follow the link in the description to find what you need. If you're looking for sealed product, Paladin Cards has some of the best deals and you can get 5% off any purchase with code Tablemon5. This video is sponsored by the Pokemon TCG deck building website PokemonCard.io. So the first deck that I think has a very good chance at winning the Pokemon World Championships is Dialga V Star. Now this V Star has a very unique attack with Star Chronos, allowing you to take another turn after the one you use this attack, allowing you to potentially eliminate 2 threats, potentially eliminate 1 threat, getting back-to-back turns without your opponent having anything at all that they can do is really powerful. Now, of course, the hefty attack cost is something to consider and is not easily overcome, but the deck is built in a very turbo way with Mew, with Radiant Greninja, with Zacian, which can even energy switch energy onto the Dialga V Star. You have the Metal Saucers, you have Raihan, and you even have Silent, so you have access to answers to Miltank. You have the potential to wreck whatever your opponent has completely, and if you go first, you have a very big advantage against most decks in the format. The issue is it's a one-trick pony. Once you've done your V Star, or if your opponent properly prepares for it or has enough resources to come back from that, it's really hard to close out games if your V Star goes down. You're also very susceptible to an early boss's orders to any of the Dialga that you committed the energy to, so that can be problematic. But overall, I think this deck has a very solid chance at winning the Pokemon World Championships this year. Next up, we have Mew VMAX. Now, if we go back to February, people were calling for this deck to be banned. They were calling Mew VMAX as the worst thing to ever happen in this whole wide world, and that Pokemon wasn't fun anymore and it needed to get banned. Fast forward to the Pokemon World Championships, we all recognize it's a very powerful Pokemon, we all recognize its potential and its threatening prowess. However, to call for a ban on it would be a little overreaction, right? And I will tell you, historically, having played this game for over 20 years, whatever the perceived top deck is, there's always people complaining about it. So it's better to just get along with it. If it's the best deck and you want to win a tournament, play it. If it's the best deck and you want to try and counter it, because then you'll have a big advantage against plenty people playing it, then go for it, right? But complaining does no good. But anyways, this deck has the biggest potential right now that it's ever had, because people aren't taking it as seriously as a threat anymore, right? Its power level is definitely very high, but Arceus V Star and Palkia V Star have proven time and time again that it can go toe-to-toe with Mew VMAX decks, and therefore people are a little bit more concerned about those decks than Mew VMAX, which means less dark type attackers, which can one-kill your Mew VMAXs. And then we all know how powerful this deck can be with just a couple or a single battle VIP pass in your starting hand, combining that with Genesect's Fusion Strike system ability, drawing you a bunch of cards, and as long as you don't get trapped by a path to a peak, this deck can be very powerful, and it also takes advantage over any deck that got a very slow start. So if you didn't start too well, you can easily be punished, and this deck also has the most potential to deal or to be very threatening, even if it loses the coin flip. So that is something that can be very appealing to a lot of players. Will this deck succeed? Will Mew VMAX end up winning the World Championships after not having won a single North American regional? I believe it only won 1 regional total, right? And no international. So will Worlds finally be time for Mew to shine? we will see. But I fully expect this deck to be out in full force and to do well at the Pokemon World Championships, and it definitely has a solid chance to win it. Next up, we have this gem of a deck that got unveiled by Sander's group, I guess. Sander ended up placing the highest with it at 3rd place at NAIC, and had it not been by that pesky Azul with his Phoebe and Palpat, then I'm fairly sure Sander would have been crowned the NAIC champion. Now, it's really cool to see Mewtwo V-Union and V-Union cards in general start to see a little bit more play and start to be experimented with. This deck is one of those decks where we all know it's not going to be very popular, which means you have a decision to make. Do you try and tech for it, or do you accept that it's a bad matchup and hope not to face it? Which, if that's the attitude that a lot of players end up going into the World Championships, then that's when this deck is the best position to do well. Because the least amount of tech cards you have for this deck, then the easier it is for them to get to the perfect situation, get to a perfect lock, and then completely lock you out of a match with the super regeneration attack, healing over and over, never decking themselves out unless you hit a statistical anomaly with your coin flips with Silene, and therefore you have a very solid deck, a very powerful deck where when it's just like the Mew VMAX deck, the more it is underestimated, the better it will likely perform. So keep an eye out for this deck. I would not be surprised if Mewtwo V-Union gets a win at the Pokemon World Championships this year. Next up, we have Palkia V Star, the latest, most powerful V Star to be released in a main set. We do have Mewtwo V Star, but we have talked about that. If you want to hear my thoughts on Mewtwo V Star, check out the previous video about decks that are not winning the Pokemon World Championships. But Palkia V Star is a very powerful deck. This is the version that a lot of Japanese players have been playing at online tournaments. It's one of the versions, or similar, with the capture energies and the combination of boss and custom catcher, cross switcher, and whatnot, that did well at Japan Nationals, and that I believe a lot of Japanese players are big fans of, and I would not be surprised to see most Japanese players playing some form of Palkia. Now, the really beautiful thing about this deck is that you can play so many techs, as you do have Drizzle and Shady Deal and Inteleon to search for them. You even have Irida to search for those item cards as well. And you have Palkia as a really powerful attacker. And even Radiant Greninja provides not only consistency by drawing extra cards, but also the flexibility and the potential to snipe to Pokemon for 90 damage, which, if people underestimate that and are not running Manaphy in their decks, they could be heavily punished. So I do believe this deck is really, really well positioned going into the World Championships, especially with Flying Pikachu and Lightning type attackers in general just being underwhelming against everything else that's not Palkia. So that means there shouldn't be a ton of counters, and that is why I think Palkia is really well positioned and is probably one of the top 2 favorites to win the Pokemon World Championships in London this year. And finally, we have the current most popular and most talked about deck in the current format, Arceus V Star Inteleon. Now, if you've been a Tablemon fan for a bit, if you've watched my videos, and if you've been following my tournament appearances since the game restarted and we got real life events back, you know that I did really well playing with Arceus V Star in the period of time before Astral Radiance. And I am not surprised to see this deck succeed and do really well after Astral Radiance and going into the World Championships. I do believe if you had to pick one deck that had a chance against anything, that didn't have any auto losses, this would be it, right? This deck is resilient, it's flexible, it has healing with Share and Scare, it's aggressive, it has a ton of options thanks to Inteleon. This version is a little more aggressive with the Choice Belt and the Zigzagoon. You can definitely play a more defensive version with no Zigzagoon and Manaphy and Dunsparce to protect yourself from Palkia, Urshifu, etc. So this deck can essentially do it all. And of course we have the Starbirth ability, which is the glue that bends everything perfectly together. Starbirth letting you search for any 2 cards that you want and putting them into your hand basically says you're very rarely going to miss a turn to attack. You'll very rarely not have the cards that you need when you need them in the first few turns, which are the most crucial turns, right? That early momentum is what carries you through to the end of any given match, and Arceus V Star does it best thanks to its Starbirth ability. And when you combine that search for any card with more searches with Shady Dealings Drizzle and more searches with Shady Dealings Inteleon for any cards that you need, then that just rounds out a very powerful and very deadly deck. And I think if you had to ask anyone which deck is a favorite to win the World Championships, it would be this one. However, that comes with like the opposite of benefits. I forgot what the word is. So that means it has a big target on its head, right? And therefore, I would not be surprised to see a ton of counters. What is a counter to a 310 HP Pokemon that can heal over and over and power itself up? That I don't know, right? One thing is weakness, which if people are not playing Dunsparce, then you could try to do so with fighting type attackers. But the issue is your fighting type deck that could maybe beat Arceus V Star good enough against Mew VMAX, good enough against Palkia V Star? This is not the only threat in the metagame. At most, it will be like 15% of the metagame, imagine, maybe 20%, but not more than that. So you have to worry about all the other 80%. Are you going to face Arceus Inteleon every single round? Definitely not. So playing a fighting deck could be a double-edged sword. But anyways, that will wrap up our top 5 decks for the World Championships. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear what you think will win Worlds. Let's start a prediction. Yeah, what deck will win Worlds, and maybe someone who gets it right will end up winning a prize. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.